Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Ken Rice. Tonight, our first look at the young man and his mother who are charged in the death of his girlfriend. The son is accused of stabbing the victim. His mother is accused of helping cover it up. Tonight, new details on the suspects and this investigation. KDK's Ricky Sayer is live at the State Police Barracks in Washington County with the new information we've just learned. Ricky.
Shortly after midnight, police were called to a parking area near a university campus in Pennsylvania. An 18-year-old college freshman was supposed to be back at her dorm, but she never checked in with her family, and calls to her phone went unanswered. Her family began trying to figure out where she'd gone, and an AirTag associated with her Jeep gave them a way to locate the vehicle. The location led them to Wood Street, near the California Public Library, and only blocks from the campus she was supposed to return to. Her Jeep was there. When officers arrived, they noticed blood around the vehicle, so they opened it and searched inside. In the rear hatch, they found the missing 18-year-old. She was dead. At that moment, police had a young woman inside her own vehicle and a family that had been searching for her only hours after seeing her alive. But investigators wouldn't have to look far into her final movements before another location caught their attention. Earlier that night, her Jeep had stopped outside a house in North Strabane Township, where it remained for roughly half an hour. Then it started moving again, and according to investigators, by the time the Jeep left that driveway, the young woman was no longer the person driving it. Police would trace its movements from that house to a second home miles away, and eventually back toward the university. Before the day was over, two people would be arrested. One was the young woman's 18-year-old boyfriend, and the other was his mother. Police would accuse the mother of helping her son clean the vehicle, move the Jeep, and conceal evidence. And after the arrests, as reporters questioned the boyfriend's mother, she was asked why she was sorry. Her answer was brief: "My son took a life." But before we go back to that night, subscribe to 10K Crimes, where we talk about real cases and the complete stories behind them. The 18-year-old found inside that Jeep was Karoline Jordan Heintz. Karoline had only recently graduated from Peters Township High School in Pennsylvania, and college was supposed to be what came next. She was beginning her freshman year at PennWest California, where she'd joined the women's soccer team as a defender, wearing number 21. Soccer had already been a major part of Karoline's life. She'd played competitively for years, including with Victory Soccer Club, where she'd been a longtime captain. Now she'd reached the next level: a new school, a new team, and the beginning of her first college season. People who knew Karoline remembered more than the player on the field. Her college soccer community described her as a happy, bubbly teammate who was always smiling, and her family described her as kind, smart, beautiful, and loved by everyone around her. After her death, Victory Soccer Club remembered her as a beautiful person, inside and out, and a former coach described her as caring, loyal, positive, and the kind of teammate who made the people around her feel included. By August 2026, Karoline had already started practicing with her new teammates, even though her freshman classes hadn't begun yet. They were supposed to start the following Monday, but on Wednesday, August 19th, just days before those classes were scheduled to begin, Karoline spent part of the day with her family. At around 9:30 that evening, she left home. Her father later told investigators that Karoline may have planned to stop at Target before returning to her dorm at PennWest California. She never made it back. Her family had access to location information connected to her vehicle, and later that night, they noticed that Karoline's Jeep had stopped somewhere unexpected, a house on William Drive in North Strabane Township. The home belonged to the father of Karoline's boyfriend, 18-year-old Royce Moser, and the Jeep remained there for roughly half an hour. According to investigators, Karoline and her boyfriend were sitting together inside the vehicle, discussing the future of their relationship. Exactly what was said during that conversation isn't known, but Royce would later tell investigators that Karoline said something that made him angry. He reportedly claimed he couldn't remember what she'd said. What investigators say happened next comes largely from statements Royce allegedly made to police and information contained in the criminal complaint. The case has not gone to trial, and these allegations have not been proven in court. According to investigators, Royce told Karoline to wait, then went inside his father's house. Police say he took a large kitchen knife from inside the home and returned to Karoline's Jeep. Investigators accuse Royce of stabbing his girlfriend in the chest, and Karoline fell from the vehicle. Police say Royce then moved her into the rear hatch of her own Jeep and got behind the wheel. For Karoline's family, all they could see was the location of the vehicle. The Jeep that had been sitting at her boyfriend's father's house for roughly half an hour was moving again, traveling away from North Strabane Township and toward Route 40. Eventually, the family's tracking information ended somewhere between Scenery Hill and Balesville. They couldn't see what was happening inside the Jeep, and they had no way of knowing that, according to police, Karoline was no longer driving it. Royce later allegedly told investigators that a demon had taken over and told him to hurt Karoline. Police say that was Royce's explanation when they questioned him. According to the criminal complaint, Royce then contacted the next person he turned to that night, his mother. Royce's mother, Royce Moser, lived in Bealsville, roughly 16 miles away. Police say Royce called her and told her what had happened, also allegedly telling her he didn't know whether Karoline was dead or alive. Then, according to investigators, Royce drove Karoline's Jeep to his mother's home, with Karoline still inside the rear hatch. What police allege happened after he arrived would eventually lead to charges against his mother as well. According to the criminal complaint, the Jeep was brought into the garage, and police say his mother gave Royce blue latex gloves and disinfectant spray. Investigators allege mother and son then began trying to clean the vehicle and remove evidence. But the Jeep still had to be moved since it belonged to Karoline, and she was supposed to be returning to college. Investigators say mother and son eventually left the Ballsville home in two vehicles. Royce drove Karoline's Jeep while his mother followed in another vehicle, and they headed back toward California Borough, the same community where Karoline was supposed to be attending college. Police say surveillance captured parts of that journey and showed Royce and his mother wearing blue latex gloves. The Jeep was eventually taken to a parking area on Wood Street near the California Public Library, only blocks from PennWest California. Karoline remained inside the rear hatch. Investigators allege that after leaving the Jeep there, Royce got into his mother's vehicle and she drove him away. Police say the efforts to deal with evidence continued after they returned home. According to the criminal complaint, Royce's mother instructed him to remove his bloody clothing, telling him to bathe and shower before changing, and then she washed the clothing herself. Police also allege she put the knife in a garbage bag and placed it in the outdoor trash. During a search of the property, investigators found a knife in the garbage matching the description Royce had given them. By then, Karoline's Jeep had been moved back toward her university. But moving the vehicle hadn't stopped her family from looking for her. Karoline hadn't checked in, and she wasn't answering her phone. Her family had already been following location information earlier in the night, and they had another way to locate the Jeep, an AirTag associated with the vehicle. Shortly after midnight, the AirTag showed the Jeep near Wood Street. The Jeep was there, but Karoline still wasn't answering. At approximately 12:14 a.m., her family called 911, and around 10 minutes later, officers responded near the California Public Library at 100 Wood Street. They located Karoline's gray Jeep Cherokee, only blocks from the campus she'd been expected to return to. When officers examined the vehicle, they saw blood. Police gained access and searched inside, then looked in the rear hatch. Karoline was there. She was pronounced dead. What had begun for her family as trying to understand why Karoline hadn't returned to campus was now a homicide investigation. Investigators documented blood throughout the Jeep, and court records also described Karoline as having been moved after the stabbing. But the family's location information also gave police a path to work backward from. Before the Jeep appeared on Wood Street, it had stopped at the North Strabane Township home of Karoline's boyfriend's father, and its movements then led toward Bealsville, where Royce's mother lived. Police began investigating both locations. At the North Strabane property, investigators focused on the place where they believed Karoline and her boyfriend had met earlier that night. At the second property in Bellsville, investigators searched his mother's home. Local news crews captured investigators working at the properties, removing evidence, and a vehicle being towed from the Bellsville location. Investigators gathered surveillance footage, physical evidence, and statements. Karoline's family had already given police a record of where the Jeep had traveled, and investigators also had 2 properties to search and surveillance footage they could compare with the statements they were receiving. At his mother's property, police found the knife in the outdoor trash, according to court records, and they also investigated the clothing and cleanup efforts described in the criminal complaint. Police also questioned Karoline's boyfriend. According to police, Royce spoke with investigators, and authorities say his account placed him with Karoline at his father's home, described what happened during their conversation, and gave investigators an account of what police believe occurred afterward. Less than 12 hours after Karoline was found inside her Jeep, police began making arrests. They arrested Karoline's boyfriend, Royce Moser, and they also arrested his mother, Rachel Moser. Royce was charged with criminal homicide and additional offenses connected to what authorities say happened after Karoline's death. His mother was not accused of killing Karoline, but prosecutors charged her over what investigators allege she did afterward, including hindering apprehension, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and obstruction. Then, as Royce's mother was being taken into custody, reporters were waiting. One asked why she was sorry. Her answer was brief: "My son took a life." By then, Karoline had been dead for less than a day. Her boyfriend was in custody, and so was his mother.
Rachel, what do you want to say to Karoline's family?
What do you have to say, Rachel?
Why'd you help your son? Do you regret helping?
Why'd you help your son cover up a murder?
I did not.
What did you say you did not help?
I'm sorry.
What are you sorry for?
I'm sorry.
What happened last night?
Why are you sorry, Rachel?
Tell us why you're sorry.
That my son took a life.
You said your son took a life? How did he do it?
Where were you going to put the body? You said you're sorry your son took a life?
Why did you help him?
Pennsylvania State Police publicly laid out the sequence investigators believed had led from Karoline meeting her boyfriend to her Jeep being found near campus. For Karoline's family, the arrests did not change what had been lost. The day after the arrests, her family released a public statement saying they were living through what they called a parent's worst nightmare. They called her a kind soul, sharp-witted and full of light, someone everyone who met her ended up loving, and thanked the people who had reached out to support their family. Their statement also asked for justice for Karoline. It was one of the first times the public heard directly from the people who had been expecting her to return to campus that Wednesday night. The same family whose concern and search for her Jeep had helped bring police to Wood Street only hours later. But it couldn't change what she had been preparing to do just days earlier. She had already arrived at PennWest California and begun practicing with her new soccer team. Instead of beginning classes that Monday, Karoline was being remembered at a memorial near the place where her Jeep had been found. Flowers, stuffed animals, and messages appeared outside the California Public Library. Members of the university community came to remember her, and fraternity members were filmed laying roses at the memorial. The soccer community Karoline had only recently joined began finding its own ways to honor number 21. Her teammates remembered that same warmth, the smile that never seemed to leave her, the way she made practice feel lighter. Her family's words hadn't changed either, still the same girl they'd always known, sharp, warm, and impossible not to love. For years, soccer had been part of Karoline's life, going all the way back to her time leading Victory Soccer Club as captain. PennWest was supposed to be the next chapter, her first season, her freshman year, a new campus, and new teammates. Instead, those teammates were mourning her before the semester had properly begun. The university and athletic community announced tributes in Karoline's memory, and a fundraiser connected to the soccer program was created to benefit domestic violence services of southwestern Pennsylvania, with moments of silence planned at conference athletic events. The response also spread beyond PennWest. Fundraising efforts were created to help Karoline's family and to build something lasting in her name, with one campaign saying donations would support the creation of a scholarship as well as organizations working to prevent domestic abuse and help people affected by it. And on Sunday evening, the community was scheduled to gather again for a candlelight prayer vigil at Trinity United Methodist Church in Peters Township. To the people gathering for her, Karoline was a daughter, teammate, captain, and friend whose college life had barely started.
Karoline had a lot of support from the community. It was really clear that there were a lot of people who knew her, but it was also very clear that there were a lot of people who were here to support the family and support her. It's really important that we surround our community with support. We wanted to be here in case anybody needed to talk.
Meanwhile, the criminal case against Karoline's boyfriend and his mother was only beginning. Both still face the charges filed against them that first night, and neither has been convicted. Both cases remain pending, with their preliminary hearing currently scheduled for August 31st. Further court proceedings may add to what is publicly known about Karoline's final night. But whatever happens next in court, Karoline Jordan Heintz was 18 years old. Days before her death, she wasn't preparing for courtrooms, investigations, or headlines. She was preparing for college, she had earned a place on a soccer team, and she had already begun practicing. On the Monday after she died, her freshman classes were supposed to begin.
What you guys just saw was the walkout, as is the charges have been filed for both the boyfriend and then also the mother of the boyfriend in regards to the homicide that we saw earlier this morning. We know we had an updated presser for you guys, just that the charges were coming, and then we had the individuals in our possession of custody. Now the charges actually got filed through, but through the appropriate manner. We can talk about that more now. You guys had a lot of questions about how these all connect, and you guys will probably get this paperwork in the meantime, but we can talk about it a little bit more here tonight. So what we had earlier upstairs was the kind of what happened at midnight. Down California PD got the call out to check the vehicle. Now we got to back up a little bit more than that. What happened before California gets that call to check for the vehicle? So after a plethora of investigations and interviews and checking cameras and putting all these pieces together of all this evidence that we were able to really hone in on within that 12-hour period, kind of paints a better picture for our investigators who worked around the clock on this investigation. What we kind of put together was late the last night after a family party, her and the boyfriend get together. They're a younger couple, talking about how relationships can continue, maybe in a college setting. Somewhere that conversation probably goes a little bit south. Towards the end of that conversation between boyfriend and girlfriend, he goes inside and grabs a large knife from the kitchen. Comes back out and proceeds to stab her in the chest area. At that point, she falls out of the vehicle. He proceeds to pick her up and load her in the back hatch of that vehicle. Drives that said vehicle to mom's house, and then starts talking with mom about what they should be doing from this point forward. They try to clean clothes, they try to clean the car up, they try to get rid of any blood stains possible, and then proceed to take that vehicle with the mother following or tailing behind that vehicle all the way down from Bellsville back down to California Borough. At that point, family puts the alert out asking for a request to see our daughter hasn't checked in, with whatever usage they were talking to California PD about, whether that was an AirTag system or a car locator. And then that's where we pair it back up with the story here just after midnight with California PD locating that vehicle, noticing the blood in the vehicle, entering the vehicle, seeing her body in the back hatch still, and we were able to pair that all together within that 12-hour period to file those charges accordingly. And then, as you've seen, those two are being sent right now for a magistrate.
Where was the vehicle when the stabbing occurred?
Yeah, so good question. So we have a couple addresses in play. The stabbing occurred outside of his father's residence.
North Strabane.
North Strabane, that Canonsburg area. Then proceeds to Bellsville, then proceeds to California, close to the university.
Was this a Volkswagen? We'd seen a Volkswagen in the garage, and that was towed here to the barracks. Was that the getaway car here?
So the Jeep Cherokee, where he placed her body in the back hatch, was what vehicle he was operating with. The vehicle that you probably saw earlier coming into more evidence collection was probably the vehicle that the mother was following and tailing behind as well. Because once he drops the vehicle off, he obviously needs a way back home, which the mother then provided in her vehicle.
So the Jeep Cherokee was his?
The Jeep Cherokee belongs to the victim's family.
Okay, so, and then the family party they were at, was it the victim's family or was it the suspect's family?
I don't have that entirely right now tonight, but I believe that it was attached to the victim's and her family's residence. Later the night, they probably get together at his dad's house, boyfriend, girlfriend. You see that somewhat of a domestic / argument take place about just, a young relationship. Hey, we're both entering college. What's going on here? That goes south, which leads to the knife stabbing. Now we're still waiting for a full coroner's report for the exact death from the autopsy. But based off interviews and everything we were gathered here today, and you guys will really see that detailed in the affidavit and complaint. Everything that I just kind of furloughed for you guys here tonight.
Karoline Jordan Heintz was 18. If you believe cases like Karoline's deserve careful, complete coverage that remembers the person behind the investigation, subscribe to 10K Crimes, leave your thoughts respectfully in the comments, and share her story with someone who should hear it.